I talk with many leaders who are passionate about accomplishing a mission, making a difference in the world, but they lack the funding that's required to do so. Many of these leaders think that they need more donors, an expanded network, maybe a larger newsletter list, but I've found that's not really the core problem. Welcome to the Legacy Leadership podcast, where we focused on helping Christian founder led nonprofits to get funded so that they can lead well, live whole, and leave a legacy. What I found is that leaders don't have a passion problem, they have a system problem. That many of us have the passion, we have the desire, the drive to accomplish a mission, to right a wrong in the world, to meet a need, to solve a problem. That we have the desire, maybe even the know-how, the skills, the gifts to do the actual work, but we lack the funding because we lack a system that we can follow that helps us to get it. We go out and we ask people for money, but we end up not asking for what we really need because we don't have a plan. We might ask for other people to get involved, but we ask too much and we end up damaging relationships or our reputation. When we don't have a system, we are starting over every single time that we go out there and try to make an ask. I remember one couple, some friends of mine, that when I first started working with them in one of our first conversations, they talked about the work that they were doing overseas. Amazing work, helping to create these learning centers for young people to take them off the streets, to work with moms who had been in human trafficking situations, to be able to have the trades and the skills that they need to be able to provide for their family without going back into the life that they had lived before. Taking these children off the streets who were targeted by traffickers because the children weren't doing anything during the day. They weren't able to go to school. The passion was there. Even the know-how, they knew how to do the ministry. They understood the culture, the area that they were working in, and even knew the problems. They had the contacts, they had the space to build the learning centers, but they lacked the funding because they lacked the system. Nobody had ever taught them how to do that, which is true for most of us. Most of us didn't start off with training and how to fundraise or how do we go out and ask for money or build networks. Most of us never went to school to get our MBA. And I find that even a lot of nonprofit leaders didn't go to seminary or other schooling. They saw a need and they went out to meet it. And so I want to encourage you that if you are lacking funding, that maybe you think about it as a systems problem and not a donor problem or a network problem. Another thing that I often see because of a lack of systems is that leaders approach fundraising very haphazardly, very randomly, that they go and look for donations when they have a new project that comes up, or they start to feel the strain of paying the bills or covering salaries. They then go out and try to put together an event or they send an email blast. Maybe they post on social media when they have an event coming up. The problem with that is that every time we go to fundraise, we're starting at zero. We're going back to our network, having to present something new. We're having to present another vision. Maybe we are having to do all the work to work back up to an ask versus already having the system that's laid the foundation so that when we are ready to make an ask, people are ready to respond. Instead of approaching our fundraising so haphazardly, Again, we need a system that is helping us understand how to fundraise as a whole, how fundraising becomes part of the day to day of our organization, which actually makes it a lot more manageable. It makes it a lot more fun. It makes it a lot more relational and authentic. When we don't have a system, it can cost us more than just the slow pace of accomplishing the mission because we can't move as fast as we could if we had the money. It also costs us in other areas as well. I find that for many of those who are leading the organizations, it costs us our own health, both mental and physical, sometimes emotional and spiritual. I know for me, when I was running a nonprofit, and I often felt the weight of needing the funds to come in. And although we had a very good funding system in our organization, I still carried that weight, carried that burden of needing to make sure that the funding was there month to month so that I could pay our employees, so that I could feed the children that were in our schools, so that I could build the new buildings that were going to allow for more people to get fed, more people to be cared for. It's a burden of leadership that many who don't have it can't understand it. It's this weight that we carry that not only affects us mentally, but it also affects us physically. Sometimes we can feel it even in our own bodies, our shoulders, our stomachs, just turn at different times because we have so much pressure that we carry around because of the lack of funding. And again, I truly believe that that's a lack of a system that allows even other people to be part of helping us with that fundraising. Other things that the lack of a system can create are difficulties and problems within our families because we don't have a system and we don't know what we need to do when we can take on more than we're supposed to and not spend the time that we should with our families, not be as present as we could be with our families. We're always on our phone or checking our email or responding to every single thing that may come in. We end up damaging relationships at time as well because when we don't have a system, we can feel so much pressure to make an ask that when we have the time to connect with people, it comes across as icky or gross or unauthentic that we're asking out of a sense of need. We're asking in a very begging way that is actually very unattractive to the people that we want to connect with. I know that I've been there as well, where I feel that pressure to need funding for a particular project or maybe to pay some of my staff, and I end up in a conversation, and the conversation becomes less about the relationship and it comes becomes more about what I can get out of the other person, which is not how we want to approach fundraising. But when we have a lack of a system, that can often happen. I know that some of the leaders that I've worked with in the past, they have an opportunity to either make a genuine connection with somebody or the opportunity to present. And the relationship hasn't really gotten to the point of accepting a good presentation, but out of the pressure to need the funding, they jump the gun and they ask for money, but it really turns people off. They feel like all you want from them is their money, and you don't really care about them as a person. And so, having a system is incredibly important in being able to be an effective fundraiser and ultimately to effectively accomplish the mission that you've been given to accomplish. So, I want to encourage you this week to take some time to write down a list of all the things that you do to fundraise in your organization. whether it's events or letters that you might send. Maybe it's posting on social media, could be going and speaking at churches, maybe doing can drives or 5K races, whatever those things might be. And each thing I want you to ask yourself, is this a random activity or is this part of a fundraising and funding system? And don't beat yourself up if it looks like more of a random list of activities and there's no system that's behind all of it, that's driving it, that's keeping it consistent from day to day and month to month and week to week. Um, that's normal. Most nonprofit leaders are in that space. Most of the people that I can connect with don't have a system in place. And so if you don't, you're not alone. In the next episode, I'm going to walk through a basic framework that I teach to nonprofit leaders, to ministry leaders, to start to implement a system, to understand a system that you can put in place in your organization so that ultimately, again, you can lead well, live whole, and leave a legacy. If you want to move a little bit faster, learn this system a little bit more quickly, gain some more momentum, I have a book called Fundraising Momentum. It's out on Amazon. I'll drop a link in the show notes. And I would encourage you to get that book, read through it, and you can learn some of this system a little bit faster.